Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video I want to discuss Goku, and more specifically, the discussion entailing Goku's personality in the modern story of Dragon Ball, with Dragon Ball Super, and really Goku in general after the Buu Saga. A lot of fans have noted over time that Goku acts very differently in Dragon Ball Super than he did for the majority of the story leading up to that point. However, many people have also made note of the fact that Goku acted differently in the Buu Saga onward as well. Why did Goku make so many strange decisions? Why did Goku seemingly act out of character in that arc? Now, most people will go to an out-of-universe reason. For instance, the idea of Flanderization, where you boil a character down to its most well-known components and only have him be that. And you could argue that's certainly what they did with Super. However, I have an idea with one theory that could explain why Goku is different in the Buu Saga onward, in universe, that explains just about all of it, if it is in fact the case. So I'm going to be talking about some evidence for and against this theory, because that is, as you can see in the title, did Goku actually kind of lose his mind, go crazy, and become disconnected from reality in the afterlife, in between the Cell and the Buu Saga? Well, let's talk about it right now, as I open up the manga. And so, what is a big event that happened that changed Goku in universe? Well, as we know, up until the point of the Buu Saga, Goku, he had died once before, and he was there for close to a year. The Saiyans arrived before that, actually. The whole year was up, but either way, in this case, this was much different. You see, Goku at that point never gave up on the idea of being alive, but in this story, in this timeline, he did, in fact, because Goku, well, you see, he sacrificed his life in one of the most emotional and best Goku moments for me, when Cell was going to blow himself up and destroy the planet. He teleported him away, and in turn, he ended up dying in the process. Now, as we know, when the story continues on, Goku didn't just stay dead for a short amount of time. Unless you're a Supreme Kai, and then your entire life is a blink of an eye, right? But in this case, no. They went to wish him back. But as Toriyama showed here, the grand finale, as he called it, maybe that's what he originally intended, and then kept going. They want to wish him back, but Goku says, no, you see, I decided that I'm going to stay dead, and in turn, I am going to use it in order to not draw any more enemies to the earth, and also I'm going to go off and I'm going to train with other dead masters and characters that will be able to help me bring everything, even further beyond, which we do see him in the Buu Saga taking everything further beyond. But then he had fully accepted his death. He had fully accepted he'd be gone forever in his mind. He said, I'll see you all someday when you're dead, and then we'll meet again. So that was the idea. That was the grand finale that Toriyama was talking about of Goku's character, his story, and really everything in the story. Everybody says goodbye. That's why, for me, the Trunks arc is really, the Cell Saga and everything is really the best ending, not the future Trunks and Super, very different. But in this case, really the best ending of the story. We got not only this ending, but then the ending with Trunks, where he destroys his androids, defeats Cell, and then, again, himself says, thank you so much, Goku, for everything, and they brought peace to his future until Dragon Ball Super. Now, this went on for 7 years. The world changed, and Goku, again, had moved on during everything. Gohan was now basically an adult, going to high school because of, time chamber trainings messing up his whole age and everything. And not just that, but then the only reason he decided to come back was for a one-day visit. He had spent those years in heaven, in the afterlife, in otherworld, or whatever you'd like to refer to it as. In the anime, it's like Rankai's world, but we see him here. Now, Goku, again, he had no reason to suspect he would ever come back to life. He only did it for a one-day visit, which was basically like a gift from Enma King Yemma, and fortune teller Baba to participate in this tournament, to fight for fun against his son and others in order to, kind of just have a one last hurrah in the story and before going off into the distance forever, right? But with that being said, think about how immensely different the world is in the afterlife compared to here. As Goku's talked about already, it does not have the same concept and understanding of time. Now, you can argue this is a turn of phrase, but when Goku originally died in the story, he was told by King Kai that a year on his planet training could be equivalent to thousands of years on Earth. That could be just because the fact that Goku was training under the greatest master that he had known at the time, but you could also argue maybe that's more literal than it seems to be. Goku was training for 7 years with King Kai during this point in time. He was only concerned on that. He had accepted he'd never come back, and as a result, no doubt over the course of that time, in his acceptance of reality as it was, and the fact that life really continues after death, and that life and death are not as different as many people believe who have never really been there and experienced this, Goku could become more and more detached over time from that life-death cycle, from the importance and impact of it. They already had things like the Dragon Balls that in turn led to the idea that, oh, we could always wish people back if they die anyway, but before this, things seemed way more significant when a character died because of that, even more so when they died without the ability to be wished back. But for this, Goku, well, he thought that he'd be here forever, for all eternity, that eventually his friends and family would die too. They would show up and he'd spend forever with them. That's a very different mentality than seeing somebody die and not knowing for a fact what happens after death and wondering and pondering. In this case, he knows exactly what will happen, and that maybe, just maybe, that means that the impact of death itself means significantly less on him. This leads into the Buu Saga and what we see there, because this is where Goku comes back to life as I had shown before. He starts to make some extremely questionable decisions, as you might say. For instance, when he goes to fight against Fat Buu as a Super Saiyan 3. Now, Goku himself had mentioned later in the story, when he goes to fight against Kid Buu, that he could have been able to defeat Fat Buu. Now, whether or not that's actually true is something I've discussed on my channel that you could see in the top right corner of this video or in the description down below, and on my channel in general. And basically that is that, could he have actually won? That's up in the air, to be honest. But the truth is that Goku didn't really try to win, because in his mind, he wasn't supposed to be there. And not just that, but also, well, he believed that, the others should handle that instead, that it's their job, they should be ready and prepared. But when it comes to his reaction to the lives and deaths of everyone that's occurring at the time, does it really make sense for Goku's character to be really gambling everyone on the planet and their lives and everything just in case that maybe somebody else who has less experience than him and is less powerful would be able to win just because of some technique that he might be able to teach them? Or is this more symptomatic of his changing personality? He's watching Buu killing all these people right now, and he, in turn, well, it seems to be bothering him, but is it really bothering him as much as, like, let's say when he attacked Dr. Gero, watching him wiping out a whole city of people in front of his eyes? He says, oh, well, he might kill everyone on the Earth, but, he's not going to wipe the entire planet out, so they could always wish everybody back. He does say that he feels bad for the people down there. He feels sorry for them. But again, it doesn't mean as much to him because of either A, the possibility that he'd become disconnected from life and reality in that time, and also because the Dragon Balls. It only really becomes an issue to him when they start to use the Dragon Balls again to try and wish everybody back who was killed by Buu and Babbidi's minions and so on before that point, which is when, in turn, of course, they bring back Kibito, who helps save Supreme Kai, and so on and so forth like that. Now, again, in terms of other aspects of Goku's exposure there, in terms of how he's reacting to things, let's see some more evidence to this. Again, Piccolo earlier was talking about how it seems like he's going to be killing so many people. And then Goku says, yeah, but the Dragon Balls, they can help in this case. So you could leave it up to that point. Goku at this point is so knowledgeable and experienced in terms of the fact that they can use the Dragon Balls, that he just has so much hope in it, that perhaps that's what his mentality was. Additionally, there's another point here. Goku, when Trunks and Goten they're crying, they're upset because they believe that in Goten's case, that Gohan had died, and Trunks is aware now that Vegeta had died. So they're crying, they're upset, but Goku says, you need to stop crying. We don't have time for that. If you're sad, learn this technique as fast as you can and avenge them. So you could argue that perhaps in the Buu Saga, at least, Goku is more acting this way because there simply isn't the time to be upset in that way. There isn't the way that they had in the past, seemingly infinite amount of time. He's on a time limit. In Buu, he's ravaging the planet. They have to do something now. So he's kind of in that mode, you can argue. Now, let's keep going. There is a moment when he sees that Buu is killing all of his friends with the crystal ball. When he escapes from the time chamber, and he then in turn eats them. Goku, well, he's really upset about everything. He tells Gohan it's all fine, just don't get distracted, keep doing what you gotta do, kind of like with Goten and Trunks. But then again, he still is saying, he's still very much upset. You could see there's no one left to protect the Earth, but there's still hopes as long as the Earth and the Dragon Balls exist. There's still the hope of Gohan. And of course, he didn't know what was going on with Gotenks and that he could escape. But either way, these are points against it, but still, his decision-making is a very big deal throughout the course of the story, if in fact you want to take this idea at face value. I mean, think of, for instance, when Gohan, Goten, Trunks, all these characters, his own children, his friends, family, they all die, and then they get blown up along with the planet. And Goku, very shortly after that point, still goes back to just being like, oh, well, I could have beaten Kid Buu or Fat Buu earlier, but I decided not to, give everybody a chance. He's like still locked into the idea of fighting and just like having a good time with the battle, trying to act cool and everything like Gotenks did, making a similar mistake in the same thing. And it's like, why would he have even saved Dende and Mr. Satan and B instead of his own children if he really valued life as much as he had thought in the past? Now, the thing is, I did another video, which is why Goku didn't save his family. So you can argue it's just because it was a quick snap decision. But again, it could tie into this idea that he just became so detached from life and reality that impacted his decision-making, impacted the way that he saw death as just kind of another doorway to another world where you can live there forever without all the same issues. So even then, we have this moment where he's saying goodbye to Gohan. And he says, I can't go with you anymore. I wish I could have seen you in action all grown up. We'll probably never see each other again, Gohan, at least until you cross over, but do your best and get rid of Buu. So he's saying this all happily. He's not really crying. He's not really that upset. But again, it's kind of like, well, I'll see you again, but just not in that life, So again, it seems to kind of be indicative of Goku's personality, his idea, and his perception of what life is like at this point, that life doesn't really end with death. It continues, at least for the people who get to keep their bodies. Now, going into Dragon Ball Super, what do we see Goku doing a lot of in Dragon Ball Super as well? Well, he's doing the very same thing that he was doing in this arc. You see, he is training on King Kai's planet in Battle of Gods, the movie, and in the manga and the anime. He's there, again, in the afterlife with this divine being, and he sees that even when he's alive, he can go to this world that normally he would have been able to, only when he was dead. He has a very different perception and perspective on life and death than the vast majority of beings that are alive, including his own family. I mean, pretty much all of them died during the course of the story, but they were never dead as long as Goku. They had never given up on the idea of even coming back like Goku had. So even though Goku does at points take things seriously in the arc of the Buu Saga and then moving forward, you could very well say that maybe Goku acts so lackadaisical in situations and isn't as bothered by getting people into serious, dangerous situations entirely because he became essentially detached from reality and death and also went a little bit crazy in the afterlife. So maybe perhaps that is the reason why in Super Goku acts the way he does. Maybe that's the reason why he acts more immature. Maybe that's the reason why in the Buu Saga he makes so many questionable and kind of foolish decisions. Because for him, well, it's kind of just a matter of life and death, which isn't really that important because not only do we have magical wishing balls that can bring people back anytime you want, so it's not that big of a deal if they die. It's kind of just like they're in timeout for a little bit and they come back to reality. And also, again, for him, well, he knows what's going to happen with his friends and family when they die. It's not going to be that bad of an outcome, even if death itself is still kind of a bad thing that we can't really look at. Another example, too, is with Grandpa Gohan, for instance. Now, when Goku dies in the Buu Saga and onward, we are never once told that Goku went and visited his grandfather after he died. Now, if you want to count the anime filler, the wedding dress mini arc, for instance, at the end of the original Dragon Ball, you can argue that perhaps Goku did this because the fact that he was like, well, Grandpa Gohan is with Anine. You know, he's helping to fan her flames, as it were. And so, you know, I'll let him do what he wants to do and kind of leave him be. But again, Goku kind of thought, well, you know, he's going to be there for, well, eternity. He doesn't need to necessarily visit him in the next 7 years, next 700, 7,000, 7 million. He could be there forever, as far as he knows. So why not just wait entire lifetimes of other people? What does that affect him or change anything? It doesn't really. He thinks in terms of eternity at that point in the story, not in terms of, well, a normal human or even sane lifespan. So I've always thought this is an interesting idea. Maybe it explains Goku's character change in universe and why he started to become more detached from reality and more immature, perhaps, and more illogical in his decision making, especially in Super Onward. But with that being said, maybe it just is something that's out of universe entirely, or maybe it's something entirely different in universe. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Thanks for watching. And make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.